Wholesaling completely changed my life. It's where you make an offer to buy a property, get it under contract, and then sell that contract to a third-party buyer for a profit. And for me, everything changed when I switched to wholesaling residential properties to commercial real estate and earned my first six-figure assignment fee. With that being said, wholesaling isn't the answer for everyone. It can actually be a whole lot of work. And today we'll be covering 5 pros and cons that every aspiring wholesaler needs to accept if they want to make serious progress in this business and rake in that money. Okay, starting with the pros in number 1, what's stopping you from buying a property right now? Chances are that it's money, whether it's putting down a large down payment or jumping through all the hoops it takes to get a half-decent mortgage. Most real estate investing strategies require you to have access to some serious cash. With wholesaling though, you aren't actually buying the property yourself, so you really don't need that much to get started. What you really need is the time, the dedication, and the knowledge it takes to build a strong network of buyers and sellers and connect them together with deals. You need skills to know how to put these pieces together. So the first pro of wholesaling is that very little upfront capital is required to get started. Okay, moving on to number 2, every kind of investment involves risk. That kind of comes with the territory when you're investing. When buying a property the traditional way, there are countless risks that you're taking on: unforeseen costs, property problems, you have to deal with mortgages and loans, and you're getting the property filled with actually paying tenants, so you're making money. These are all responsibilities you got to take care of. With wholesaling, your responsibility ends once that final contract has been sealed and your assignment fee has been collected. So you don't have to chase anyone down for payments on a regular basis. You don't have to pick up the phone when someone calls, when there's issues with the property. You don't have to make sure the property taxes are paid. You're paid in full and you simply move on to the next deal. So overall, wholesaling is a fairly low risk way of getting started in real estate investing. All right, moving on to pro number 3. Usually real estate is all about building generational wealth over the long run. With commercial property, you also get access to some really nice cash flow, but the biggest gains are made when your asset appreciates over a long time. Commercial real estate especially is a long-term play. With wholesaling, on the other hand, you can turn substantial profits in just a few months. I remember the first time that I wholesaled a property, I made $8,000. This was like 10 years ago when $8,000 went a lot further. $8,000 on a property that I got under contract for $42,000, and then I sold it to an investor for $50,000, and I needed a difference of $8,000. It was a low-end Class C property that I didn't want to take on or fuss with. And once I saw that check came in, and I realized that I was onto something. I was able to monetize leads on properties that I didn't personally want to hold. So one man's junk is another man's treasure kind of thing. Okay, moving on to pro number 4. Part of the reason why I'm able to wholesale contracts so quickly and effectively make that big money is because I've built a great reputation in the marketplace. In wholesaling, reputation really is everything. It isn't necessarily just about the best marketing or the biggest team you have access to. I'm able to outcompete much bigger players and close deals because I built a solid reputation. This means that potential buyers pick up the phone when I make a phone call because I've established my reputation that I have access to good deals. If you make sure and do right by everyone, if you're consistently solving problems on both sides of the transaction, you know how to accurately do repair costs, you know how to do due diligence, and you're really finding good deals, the market will reward you for it. And word travels fast in the real estate game. Even in our free community that we've had for several months now, we've seen the effects of helping folks get their name established and get deals done. We have a client that is about to make $18,000 from her very first wholesale deal, and she started with zero money, living in her trailer, but she's learned some important lessons, and she's put together an amazing deal on a 24-unit apartment complex, and she's about to rake it in. Drop a comment below if you'd like to hear more about the details of that specific deal. All it takes is one deal to skyrocket you into a whole nother station in life, depending on where you're coming from. Moving on to pro number 5. When you think about traditional education, what usually happens is you pay this exorbitant fee for a certification, a piece of paper, to gain some sort of qualification that may or may not actually help you in the career that you're about to go into. If your goal is to become a serious real estate investor, wholesaling is a perfect way for you to familiarize yourself with the market and how things work. You can learn really invaluable insights and build a priceless network of connections that you can use for the rest of your life, all while getting paid. So it's this really amazing earn while you learn situation. Through the process of wholesaling, even if you don't close every single deal, and I guarantee you won't, Every interaction that you have is an opportunity to learn about the location, the condition, market demands, and many other factors that affect the value of a property and what buyers actually like. So now you're getting firsthand experience with learning a seller's motivation, solving real client pain points, and negotiating a fair deal where everybody wins. And so creating these win-win scenarios is the magic of this business. And when you do land a deal, that assignment fee you receive could be the cash infusion that you need to pay off debt, reinvest back into your own marketing to get more deals, or put a down payment on a bigger property of your own where you start building real long-term wealth. Wholesaling could be the jumpstart that you need to get started in this business. And here's a bonus pro for you. I like to under-promise and over-deliver. Once you've got some momentum going, you can scale things up pretty easily by establishing the right systems, utilizing the right tools, and hiring the right people. Even just hiring virtual assistants to take on things like admin and paperwork will allow you to focus on what's most important in this business, which is finding motivated sellers and negotiating those contracts. Not only that, but wholesaling lends itself to remote work much better than traditional investing does. I have a friend who actually runs his business from New Zealand and is doing very profitable business here in the US. Sure, nothing beats an in-person experience of assessing property and negotiating a deal, but video walkthroughs are really common these days. And the good news is you don't have to be the one to actually do these walkthroughs. As long as you got the finger on your pulse of the market and you know how to access a tool like Commercial Deal Finder software, you can have an assignment fee hit your bank account without ever stepping foot on the property or laying eyes on it. Now, on the flip side, let's talk about the cons. The first one is, by far the biggest con, is that it takes a lot of work to establish yourself as a wholesaler. While you may not need a lot of capital up front, you will be investing resources into building your network, which is mostly your time. Finding a buyer can be difficult. Finding off-market deals can be even harder, which is the whole reason we created a community called Commercial Deal Finder. You've got to break out of what your norms are. Your comfort zone is holding you back. You need to get out there and make phone calls. You need to reach out to strangers and ask to make an offer on the property. You can run their numbers and get in the business of making offers. That is the secret to the success, is how many offers you make. Overall, lead generation is just a hustle game. You spend a lot of time and money, sometimes both, and there's just no way around it. It just takes work. But why wouldn't it? If you could make a potential of $100,000 on a deal, why wouldn't it be worth some work? That reward comes from finding and negotiating amazing deals. The good news here is that they're out there if you're willing to do the work and look for them. All right, moving on to con number 2. One strategy you hear me recommend a lot is people trying to build their network, and it's called Call 5, Write 5 strategy, where you make at least 5 phone calls per day, send out 5 postcards per day, Monday through Friday, and then 10 each on Saturday. Not only does this work, but it works so well that we've had people tell us that their phones are blowing up. There's so many people coming at them that they struggle to juggle the handful of deals that are coming at them. And so here's a downside to wholesaling. Managing multiple deals simultaneously can be a challenge. Each deal has its own set of stakeholders, requirements and deadlines you got to keep track of. Buyers, sellers, real estate agents, lawyers, title companies, etc. It takes a whole team just to close one deal, let alone 5 at the same time. And so overall, juggling multiple wholesale deals requires strong communication, organization, and financial management skills, which are skills that you'll have to develop. The good news is that these skills can apply to really any sort of business. Part of being successful is just learning to be organized. Moving on to number 3, the con here is real estate is super competitive. Wholesaling is even more competitive, I say, because there's such a low barrier to entry. Anybody can start with little to no money, and they can start today because it's just not hard to get started. Because of this, there are some bad actors who have essentially tarnished the reputation of wholesaling in general. Chances are, if you're watching this video, you may have heard about these concerns about what wholesaling is, especially being taken seriously in the commercial space. Like a little more sophisticated buyer, a little more sophisticated seller, you might be nervous about not being legit. And the truth is that if you encounter some resistance when reaching out, offering your services or building your network, you're not marking yourself as a middleman or a wholesaler. That's the most important thing. Your intention is to buy the property. And then only when another party offers to just happens to buy your position out, do you assign your interest or wholesale your contract. That's a super important distinction that it's worth watching over a couple times to make sure you get it. We're looking for good deals, and we monetize based on the money partner's preference. We are not in the business of tying a property up with just any old offer and then shopping that contract and just hoping somebody buys it and then bailing if we can't find the buyer. That is what gives a bad reputation. And this goes back to how important it is for you to build your reputation. Once you've established a valuable reputation, it makes the process so much easier. So don't become the wholesaler that gives the industry a bad name. Moving on to con number 4, wholesaling is inherently a much lower risk process than traditional real estate investing. But that doesn't mean that it's entirely risk-free. Things can still absolutely go wrong. If you don't play your cards right, buyers can cut you out of the deal by purchasing directly from the seller. Earnest money deposits are a thing and they can be complicated. If you don't sell a contract in a timely manner with your due diligence period, this is where contingency clauses are so important, and keeping track of your dates in your agreement is so important. And of course, there can be long gaps between when you actually get sales done. So the income tends to be much less stable than traditional ways of earning money. And it's kind of a eat what you kill business. So rather than a steady, modest cash flow you might get from a job, you're looking for big paydays, but they come occasionally. There's less frequent. Which brings us to con number 5. This one is going to be really obvious, but I think it's worth still reinforcing here. Wholesaling likely isn't going to net you a bigger return than traditional investing over the long run. That's just how it is. The lower risk means the lower returns. The trade-off here, of course, is that returns are much faster. So would you rather have a quick nickel or a long dime? That's the kind of question you're asking yourself. That's the trade-off you have to decide for yourself when you decide to buy a deal or wholesale a deal. And you do that on a per deal basis. And that is why you don't really hear people talk about wholesaling as kind of a long-term end goal, but rather as a launch pad that can be used to accelerate your progress with real estate investing and give you the boost that you need. So the majority of wholesalers end up transitioning into long-term investment themselves. And if you do want to get into wholesaling and you have no idea where to start, the best thing to do is to click the link that I've provided in the description below to hop on a free discovery call with either me or my team, and we'll be happy to help you. If you've got questions, we'll answer them. If you need resources, we'll provide them. Whether it's a magic wholesaling script that we use to get you through some of those uncomfortable phone calls, or the contract that I use to lock in all my deals, check out the link below.